everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's in the Tube, where it's ActionX's premiere show where we talk about all things in the world of television, which normally include episode-by-episode reviews, season-by-season reviews for shows that are currently wrapped up, or shows that are currently longly on the air, or doing these proper season reviews where I talk about a show, its recent season, on a non-spoiler basis. Because recently, we have just wrapped our Walker's Season 1 episode review coverage here on ActionX after a long 8 months. 18 episodes spread over 8 months. It was brutal on my psyche since I've been usually a season would air in between okay, so let me clarify. When a show comes out in October or September, it wraps up by April or May. So technically, it's the usual. It just felt like because of COVID times, like everything was accelerated. Like I believe The Flash came out. It rarely had a break. We just got literally a straight run for the finish. I loved it. Will we get that next season? Probably not. Hopefully Walker improves next season because I don't think I could deal with that all over again, in my opinion. But anyway, Walker's finally over. The first season is done. Season 2 is on the way. But before we talk about Season 2 stuff, which is next week's video, this week, if you have not yet watched Walker, because actually one of my best friends has not watched Walker yet, nor has some of other people who have. I mean, before I get further, I still remember when Walker came out, it was the biggest CW premiere in a long-ass time. It got 2.34 million viewers in the premiere. Obviously went downhill underneath because obviously when you have a very infrequent schedule, that's how it happens, and also people's attention spans they decrease a lot. But for Walker, I was very surprised by the turnaround, and now that I've finally seen the whole first season for myself and now it's over, was Jared Padalecki's newest show, his first foray into a different character that was not Sam Winchester for the past 15 years. Well, technically 16 years, but we're just going to say 15 because, you know. Well, actually, it was supposed to be 15 years. We still wrapped it at just 15 and a half years. So, if that makes any like a sense. Actually, 15 years and a third. So, on a short-term, boiled-down basis, was Walker Season 1 worth the wait? Was this a proper follow-up to Jared Padalecki's side of things on Supernatural? Was it worth it? For me, I believed yes, it was worth it. I think it was a really good start to this new story. Definitely Walker. What I will say of it, it had a lot of turns and twists in a good way. It wasn't a bad way most of the time. I had an expectation for the show, and then they always kept subverting my expectations for good reason. I distinctly remember saying this in the first episode reviews. Also, before I go any further, I will be spoiling everything from the first episode. Anything beyond that, so any resolutions, any like actual character direction, I will be omitting. You will have to watch the show for that for yourself to figure that out. But when I watched episode 1, I had a very clear image on how the show was going to be, how this was going to go, and then episode 2 flipped it over, and every now and then throughout the show's run, throughout the season, I definitely kept getting flipped over a lot. Not in that way, but you know what I mean. It wasn't mostly in a good way. I was very surprised they were trying to do their own thing. I will say they never kept things long. They never kept things going on too long. They always kept on moving to the next thing. They may have abandoned certain things at some points, but mostly they remembered stuff and they try to get them resolved fairly quickly so that you keep going and the story always stays fresh. And I don't even remember like a filler episode per se. And even like when we got like when Walker was originally picked up, it was only 13 episodes. We got the back 5 with the season 2 announcement, so we bumped up to 18. Even those extra 5 episodes, I'm still mad at the story because you were still adding to the characters, so they still had stuff in the tank to use as this story was being expanded upon. And I had a feeling how the show was going to end originally, and I am very happy they gave them the back 5. I believe it worked out in the long run. But anyway, for me, boiled down version, I did enjoy it. I think it was a pretty good start to hopefully a decent sized series. I don't think Walker will go 15 years. Damn it. I hit a wire on my... Now I can go a little bit more deeper. So going into more of what I enjoyed more about Walker, it's if you're unaware about me, as a reviewer of sorts. The main thing is that your story can suck, the visual may suck, but if the characters are still solid and they have purpose and you know where they're going, you will have a great time watching the show. And for me, that was definitely it. All the characters in the show, I loved them from their first debut episodes. I loved it from the moment that I got into it, and then when we eventually got the ball rolling on like certain twists and turns, I was very much surprised by the way by things developed. There were a couple of missteps in the middle and one towards the end. I'll say that much with them. But I think at the end of the day, it was worth it because like the overall story and their journeys got to progress in a natural way and in the more somewhat healthy way. I'll say that much. Also, I was trying to hold back in a yawn, even though I slept for 9 hours last night. I'm like, oh, this is the most hours I got in a week, and I'm like, I should yawn, but I'm not. I don't want to yawn, so I'm trying to hold that back in. So, anyway, on to the characters themselves, because obviously I've been raving about the character. But before I get to that, even though I just contradicted myself yet again on this show. Story-wise, the story felt like when the promotion was happening, it was definitely if this was Walker's wife, our titular character Cordell Walker. His wife passed away. Well, she died, and then now all these months later, he has to eventually return back home after staying away for so long to kind of confront the things he left behind on purpose, as well as to deal with the lingering mysteries that were left over from his wife's death, that it might not have been all so clear cut that they thought they were. That was kind of the whole message throughout season one. Like Emily's death, which is Cordell Walker's wife, her death kind of spun off to the entire season of the story of the season, and everything got connected, everything worked out naturally and well, and they made it work. I don't know how they made it work, because so when I got to episode 1, like knowing that plot point, and then it starts not with like I've been so used to watching Arrow, for example, and we immediately start in present day, and then we get the flashbacks to kind of figure out how things progress, how the story came to be. That was kind of how things went. With this show, it began not in technical present day, it began in the past, where we got a little bit of hints of Cordell and Emily's, relationship before the death. We immediately went into the death, like they didn't waste any time getting us into that. But there were still so many like questions, still so many, variables that were left unchecked when we eventually got through the first time jump, and then there was just so much pages of this open book that definitely was interesting for me. I don't remember. Usually you start with the time jump, and then you just as you go through the story, you start filling in the pages, or you don't do something as quite big. You just do small explanation. This was definitely like, here was the beginning. This happened. Time jump, and they left all this room to fill in. Now, this is not a spoiler, but do I believe they filled in everything from that first year away? I don't believe so. I will immediately expect we will get something more down the line, per se. I don't really know. But they definitely left that to their advantage in order to tell this tighter story, because had the show gone on like for a typical 22 episode season, I would have gotten bored of it. There was absolutely no way they were going to drag that out. And we're in this new era of TV where it's so weird that at one point when we were younger, well, not younger, when it was a much older generation, we always wanted more episodes. Now we're in the stage of like movies are kind of like the big thing, or people's attention spans are very minuscule, that 8-episode shows, 6-episode shows are becoming the norm. Walker is still a little long in the teeth, because it's just hard sometimes to make like a TV show work with 22 episodes nowadays. Not to say it's not possible, it's just that if it's so successful and you do it again, it starts to get harder to like replicate that. I still remember The Flash's first season, where every episode in that first season was perfect. It mattered to the story. Season 2 kind of like, it slowed down a bit, and it just kept slowing down from there. Like, it just became so hard to replicate that I actually give credit to the new showrunner Eric Wallace, for example, where instead of doing these season-long plots, he does season theme long storyline, but you still break them up. Like, you have this villain in this set of episodes, and this villain in the next set of episodes, and then a small group of interlude episodes. Like, they don't really connect to a story, they're just standalone episodes. You can technically call them filler, but they still matter. Like, that's how it works. But we live in that time period where, like, now, like, even with new shows, it just becomes hard. Like, how do you tell that story? Because at the end of the CW is still like a typical at least 13 episode run. And for some people, that's a little too long because a lot of people kind of got a little bit bored of that with Netflix's eventual binging patterns. That now in this new current age, it becomes difficult. But for Walker, I can say 95% of all the episodes matter to the story. I think there was like one in the future and later on where it's like, okay, you could have like literally like spread this out throughout a few episodes. We still would have gotten the same message. That's in my opinion, though. I know some people really like the show and they would have preferred that extra episode. So that's my thoughts on it. Anyway, on to the characters, as I was mentioning before. We'll work our way up to the to our leading man. Starting with, let's go with Grandpa Walker. It's also weird because I think I mentioned this in the episode 1 review where when he was Cass, and then when I eventually did the first episode review, it was funny, like, in Supernatural, because he was in Supernatural, he actually played Sam and Dean's grandfather. And on this show, he's Cordell's Walker. He plays Jared Padalecki's dad. And it's funny, like, Jared's gotten so old that he technically is now considered decent amount of age to be considered a dad to him. It's funny. It was really funny. I liked him a lot. I've seen his character before in other projects. I actually just saw him in Grey's Anatomy recently as I was binging that, which might be a future quick impressions. Who knows when that'll come out. But then when I went into this series, and he was your typical like old-fashioned Texans dad. He was kind of like stuck in his ways. He didn't really like to listen to anyone. He had some issues with his wife because after decades of marriage, you're going to have those issues. And when we got to like a little bit later on in the season, we got to see more of him, like the more human element of him. Because like, it's always that typical, like the hard shell dad has a soft core. He does have a soft core. He cares about his family a lot. The whole theme of this show is family. And he cares about it so much. But then when we get to the bonus final, we discovered this like new element of him specifically. It just became like, wow, this guy really cares about his family, not really much of himself. There's a point like before then, like towards like the climax of the original story arc for season 1, where he just does not care about himself. He just like, I will do anything I can to save my family. He's always been like the head honcho of the family. He's the one willing to make the sacrifice play. And I think that was his like his redeeming aspect, because like the first half you just saw him most as a dick, and then when you got later on to the second half, you definitely saw more of like he has a lot of layers to him, and the only person who could really understand him is his wife, but they still have a lot of work to do to get to that stage they were before all this happened. Grandma Walker was kind of a sweetheart, and another thing that I wasn't expecting, because I initially thought that Grandpa and Grandma Walker were just going to be sideline characters. They were just going to be there for moral support. Maybe they'll have some storylines there and there, but they really weren't going to do that much. When we got to the midpoint of the season and we got to figure out more stuff about Grandma and Grandpa Walker, I was like, huh, I wasn't expecting that. Because, like, Grandma Walker's such a sweetheart. You wouldn't really expect her to do anything terribly bad. I won't spoil that aspect of how that happened, but I was just like, damn. I was not expecting them to go in that direction, and they did. So, kudos to them, but it definitely, like, layered onto the fact that you just really don't know anyone until, like, you really get to know them. You really can't predict anyone's, actions or character until you get to figure out who are they, inside themselves, and what else have they done in their past for them to become that person. Liam Walker, I think I honestly thought like Liam definitely they definitely framed him a little bit differently. It could just be the actor's approach or just misdirection after that first episode, because I initially thought Liam was a little bit more shadier than you let on. You'll see that in like episode 1. Then when you gradually progress, you start to like really lose that luster, and you start to lose that sense quickly on. But again, like there's a lot of things about this Walker family. He was kind of like the good child. He definitely he felt like the straight A, follow by the rules type dude, and there was a lot of points in the season where it's like his morals kept getting questioned, and he kept getting pushed to the edge, especially to one singular point in the midpoint of the season. I think he was my least favorite character next to August. I think I did not really like him terribly as much. Maybe because like it was just like there's already like such a big cast already. You really couldn't squeeze in everyone, and he definitely had his own stuff to do. I'm not saying he had nothing to do. It's just for me, I didn't really feel as hooked into him as I think a lot of other people were doing. So that's just my opinion. Again, this is a opinionated thing, so you're allowed to agree or disagree with me. That's just my logic on it. Which is actually a perfect segue to August Walker. August, the son of Cordell. It's so weird because like I'm coming from Superman and Lois and just and High School Musical, the musical series, where like these teens feel like a little bit more smarter than the where things were before. August sadly reminds me of like what a regular teenager is like, and could just be generally to my generation or the generation beforehand or just something along that timeline. When I first saw like August, that like when we first see the kids, August and Stella, like we framed that like it was such a weird like turnaround with their like how we saw their journey, because like we saw them in the first episode beforehand as just regular kids, and then when we got to the time jump and we saw them at complete opposites. They're like their mother's death definitely affected him as well as their dad's disappearance. It affected them a lot, and they turned them into these different characters, and these characters are like, I'm not really sure if I'm comfortable with the way they went to. I'm not really sure. August was innocent and sweet, and he kind of became a little bit of a dick towards the end a little bit. I mean, he's still nice, and he's still like a good kid. It's just that he just became a typical teenager where at times he would make dumb calls. But then even that gets turned around because, again, this show likes to throw curveballs at me. There was a moment towards the end, like, I would recommend watching my episode review on that episode. I believe it was 16 or 17, I want to say. And I'm like, dude, you had a chance. I respect the hell out of you. But I'm like, there's another self of me where I'm like, you should have went for it. You should have done it. And if you know what the hell I'm talking about, you know what the hell I'm talking about. But either way, I think August, he was, for me, my least favorite character. I'll say that much about it. Again, this is a season 1 non-spoiler review, so I can't get too much into depths. But as for Stella's your typical, like, she had a crazy-ass journey throughout the show, throughout the season specifically, and to be fair with you, that definitely felt like regular teenage drama, on top of the layer of this specific story of, you know, the main story of how that gets added into her teenage drama. And keep in mind, for a good moment there, actually, no, I forgot, this was non-spoiler. I can't spoil anything. But there was a moment I thought they were going to go in definitely one direction with this character, and they didn't. And definitely they go to show, like, they were planning out some long-term things for her, and they know, like, this story is not over for her, so they are keeping still things a little bit along the lines for season 2. I think Stella was affected way harder than things, as well as she's your typical teenager, so it's like she's got a lot going on, not just her home life, but her school life, her friends' life. There's just so much to her, and, you know, seeing her eventually having to deal with them head on and then survive them definitely showcases the durability and the internal strength of her character. And I just felt like she was funny. I did like her at times. I really did. I can't wait to see where they'll take her next, because she's been through so much. I think out of all of them, next to Cordell, she got affected so much by things, and then the more you get through the flashbacks with Emily, and then seeing more of like what her character's been up to during the time jumps, for me, I'm just feeling like, damn, I really feel for her, and I really want to see where she'll go next in this story, because even though technically they're out of the woodworks with this journey, there's still a lot more for her to deal with, and I just want to see where they go. But for this season, I think she definitely pulled through the most of the crap, and it made her a better character, but she still has a ways to go. I'll say that. But for me, hands down, Mickey was my favorite character, played by the lovely Lindsay Morgan, which I already seen her in 7 seasons of The 100, and I loved her character in that. So this Walker was definitely like the series. Like I told George this, it's just George, my usual collaborator on ActionX and all of our content. When I think I was going into 2020, 2021, I forgot which year it was, or it could just be movies or just in general. if there's a project that I have literally no interest in terms of the IP or what this is, what the story is going to be, but if it's a solid cast, I would be inclined to watch it because, okay, I like this actor, I like that actress, I want to see what they're going to do together and what type of story they're going to tell. Like Knives Out. Like, I love the cast of Knives Out. Have I seen Knives Out yet? Not at all, because I've been busy and my friends keep refusing to watch it with me, and I'm also fucking lazy to buy it on DVD and watch it myself. So, that's my thing. But I would definitely see Knives Out, even though it's an original IP, and I don't know what the hell the story is going to entail. But the cast is so amazing. So when Walker got cast, obviously you had Jared Padalecki, you had his wife, you had Grandpa Walker, also forgot Captain James. I almost forgot about him. I saw him on The Gifted before this show. He played. I didn't like his character The Gifted at all. I like this character here, but for me, I was like, damn, this cast is solid. And then they cast Lindsay Morgan. I'm like, bet you got a solid duo here. It's really hard to replicate Sam and Dean or Jared and Jensen. Jared and Lindsay have some sort of like this butting head stubbornness personality where Mickey is stubborn in her own right, but to an extent, but she's still very formal. Walker is just stubborn as hell. Before or after Emily's death, he was always stubborn, and he still had that element in it. And Mickey had to become the new straight woman in his life since, there's never going to be a romantic connection between them. Like, there never will be, and there probably never will and however long this show's going to go for. But seeing them together and just interacting, just seeing the journey between them was very nice to see. Because, okay, she's going to love Walker eventually. She's going to fit into this family. And spoilers, she does. It's not that surprising. It took a lot of rough going. And she spoke, like, when we eventually, like, see more backstory on her character and her storyline before, Walker happened, like, the main storyline. Seeing her get to that point and having her to deal with like a lot of struggles that a lot of people would do because like there's not that many female Texas Rangers, and her being like an exceptional one out of the bunch, and then seeing her kind of rise above everyone else was interesting. It definitely showcased like the relatability that a lot of people have, but she never gave up and she still kept going even though she kept getting thrown all these the curveballs and changes, and I have to give it to her as a character, and also I just love her comedy, so I really do. So for me, yeah, I definitely think Mickey, for me, was my favorite character out of the bunch. And of course, obviously, more of a bigger shot to Lindsay Morgan for her work on it. And as for our main dog himself, the main lead, the main ranger, Cordell Walker, played by Jared Padalecki. And of course, now that I said that, okay, Mickey was my favorite character, does that mean I just don't like Cordell? I like him. I really do. It's definitely an issue of just the aspect of it's hard to separate, because I watched all 50 seasons of Supernatural. I watched him grow all these years, and here he is starting a new journey. I relate to Tobey Maguire. Like, I watched all the Spider-Man films. I love them in those. And then I watched The Great Gatsby. And for a little bit, it was difficult to kind of separate Peter Parker from his character Nick Carraway in The Great Gatsby. It was a little bit difficult at first, but eventually I believed in his new interpretation as Nick Carraway that I completely forgot about Peter Parker for a second. For Jared here, it took a little bit of time, and they just had to give him a different drawl, like a different dialect in his vocabulary. Because there were times where, like, early on, like I kept thinking of Sam Winchester, and then eventually the Walker voice just stuck with me, because definitely Jared Padalecki knew, like, he was on the CW. A lot of the people who are going to watch Walker, me included, were Supernatural fans. We loved him so much that we want to support him in his next journey, which is in this show. So seeing him in here, like, it took a little bit of time. I definitely will. I'm very appreciative they shaved off most of his. They gave him a little, not shaved. They gave him a little bit more of a facial hair. They managed to cut that freaking long ass hair of his. Finally, thank God. That was freaking bugging me throughout the end. I was very thankful of that. But then now in this show, they definitely played it, but there were so many layers to Cordell during the later half where it's like he just kept adding on. Like, this is a more complex character that I think, again, I know I shouldn't be making that many Supernatural comparisons since I have to rate this on its own, but I think the last comparison I will make is that Sam Winchester, throughout the show's run, he's dealt with so much trauma, and he just accepts it and he just lets it build around him to grow him. That was kind of a little bit of an unhealthy way to do it. Walker is dealing with a lot of trauma. Don't get me wrong. He's still dealing with his fair share. Not as crazy as the other show, but at least here he is doing it healthy. He's doing it through the support of his family, and that eventually that helps him build out his character. Like, there's definitely a clear different Walker from episode 1 to episode 18. There's definitely a clear, there's a change here. These are not the same Walkers, and I appreciate that journey. I love that journey. It took a little bit of time for me to get on board with him, but I eventually did, and I think Jared did a really good job differentiating things and making his first real mark of just, hey, I'm not just Sam Winchester. I can play someone else. I have not seen Chuck Norris's interpretation of Walker, so I can't really make a comparison, but I think he did a solid job. I think he did. But again, no one could beat Chuck Norris, so I'll just say that there. I'll just say it. So to wrap it all up, I would highly recommend Walker. I really would. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. It's not terribly too long in the teeth, but it's a little bit. So if you can just manage it a little further, you could. But overall, I really like this show. I really did. There's a lot more room to grow in season 2, but in this season alone, I think they did a pretty good job of making their mark and, cultivating the story and this cast that makes you want to come back for more, hopefully down the line for more seasons. So for me, I would recommend Walker. Right now, you can catch Walker on the CW app. All 18 episodes are streaming. It will be up there for X amount of time before it eventually hits HBO Max, before season 2 hits. So you have all that time, so go check it out. You can check it out for free on the CW app or the CW.com before it gets moved over to HBO Max later this fall, before season 2 premieres at the end of October. But again, let me know in the comments below. What did you think of Walker? Let me know. I love to talk to people about it because none of my friends have seen it yet. Or if I've convinced you to watch Walker, by the way, you can follow me along because after every episode of Walker, you can stay tuned for an episode review by me, where I actually go into more depth and more spoiler talk about it because I did that. So go check that out and then come back and then leave your comments on how the whole season went. So let me know. But I think that's going to do it for me, everyone, today, because I have things to do and my stomach's grumbling. So if you're unaware, this has been What's in the Tube, reviewing the first season of Walker, spoiler-free. If you want to know what we're doing overall, What's in the Tube, besides our Walker reviews, we're currently doing Heels episode reviews each and every Monday morning after a brand new episode on Sunday nights on Stars. It's still so new to me. That's still so new. We're also doing DC Stargirl Season 2 episode reviews each and every... What season are we up to? Each and every Wednesday mornings after a brand new episode, on Tuesday nights on the CW, or free the next day on the CW app. But if you only care about Walker, you're still in luck. We have one more week of coverage left. Next week, we're going to be doing our season 2 predictions video, where we're going to talk about what I hope to see in the second season of Walker, which premieres this October on the CW, making it our shortest gap of time. So stay tuned for that. But that'll be coming soon. But again, if you're unaware, this has been What's in the Tube from ActionX. If you want to see more of us, please subscribe to ActionX on youtube.com/ActionXvideos. Like, favorite, share this review if you want to, but it helps us get it out there to other members of the Walker family who has yet to discover us, helps us beat up that YouTube algorithm that hates me ever so much, and as well as sharing is for free here on the internet. Ring that bell for notification when our next Walker video is live, which is normally each and every Friday mornings, as well as follow us on our social media, including our brand new Instagram page. So follow us on there. But until then, for all you members of the Walker family, I'll hopefully see you all next week for the Season 2 predictions video. But until then, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and as always, peace out.